Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the invocation, which will be offered by the Reverend Joe Churchwell, the pastor of Sandy Run Missionary Baptist Church. Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors and the national anthem.
Let us pray. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. They were called upon to endure the hardships of a peacekeeping mission as comrades of many, including myself. Eternal God, abide with us today, for it is your sovereignty that provides the sure foundation of all our strength. Lord, you gave us them, and you gave them unflinching courage to defend the honor, dignity, and devotion. We invite your presence, that it may continue to bring an everlasting peace, which passes all understanding, to those who have been touched for the purpose of our assembly this morning, those who bravely fought and gallantly died for their country. By laying down their lives, they showed supreme love for others, for peace and right for the world to obtain. In Jesus' name, amen.
March on the colors. Please be seated. On Sunday morning, October 23rd, 1983, 31 years ago today, a violent bombing took place at the headquarters building of the United States Peacekeeping Force in Beirut, Lebanon. This event, plus subsequent actions in Beirut and Grenada, caused the deaths of 273 U.S. Marines, soldiers, and sailors. Most of these men were from Camp Lejeune and were the friends and neighbors of the citizens of Jacksonville and Onslow County. Almost simultaneously, another bomb detonated in another section of Beirut, killing 58 members of the French peacekeeping force. The ceremony remembers the events of that day and honors those who lost their lives in the cause of peace. While today's observance focuses on those Americans who lost their lives, let us also honor those who were part of the French peacekeeping force with this moment of silence. Our community has vowed to never forget the events of October 23, 1983, and that is why this ceremony has been held annually. Thank you for being a part of the Renewing Our Pledge to Never Forget, and for your participation in the honor to those named on the wall behind me who lost their lives in the cause of peace. I would like to give a special welcome today to the family members and the Beirut veterans who are attending. In addition to this ceremony, the Military Order of the Devil Dogs will conduct their annual ceremony at the Beirut Memorial Monument at the Camp Geiger Circle. The ceremony is set for 2 p.m. this afternoon, and those attending should use the entrance to the Marine Corps Air Station to access the site. Signs and sentries will direct the attendees to the site. These observances are important to our community, as October 23, 1983 holds a special place in our community's history and the history of the Marine Corps. Mayor Sammy Phillips continues the tradition of carrying the torch of leadership and commitment to military families in our community, to never forget the sacrifices of military families and their service members. A native of Jacksonville, a graduate of Jacksonville High School, North Carolina Wesleyan College, East Carolina University, and the FBI Academy, Mayor Sammy Phillips served on the City Council after retiring as Deputy Police Chief. In 2007, he was the first person ever elected mayor for a 4-year term. In the last 31 years, there have only been 6 mayors of Jacksonville, all of whom have stood on this setting for this observance. Today, Sammy Phillips continues the solemn pledge of this community to never forget the events of this day 3 decades ago. Please welcome Jacksonville Mayor Sammy Phillips.
Good morning, everyone. On the behalf of a caring community and my fellow council members, I want to welcome you to Jacksonville and to this memorial and to this observance, the 31st observance, 31st year. I see many familiar faces in the audience today, and I want to acknowledge members of the armed forces, particularly the Marines and sailors that are here today, our interested citizens, community leaders, our Beirut veterans, and all other veterans, our local veteran organizations that are represented here today, and most important, the families of those who made the ultimate sacrifice in Beirut, Lebanon. I welcome you all to this observance, and I am honored to renew the pledge that we as a community and as a city will never forget October 23rd, 1983. Our community is a changed place since that day. We mourned for the loss of life. We grieved for their families and loved ones, and we mourn for the unrealized potential of these people that lost their lives sacrificing themselves for our freedom. We mourned as a community, one community, not military and civilian, but the entire community. We were overwhelmed by the extent of the grief that we all felt. So many were lost, and the loss touched so many. So entwined were we as a community that we mourn together, military and civilian. That joint mourning, the reliance of faith and community, and compassion of others, has been a common bond of remembrance since 1983. We have and we continue to offer our compassion, our thoughts, and our prayers to the families and the loved ones whose names are on the wall. We honor them with our ceremony and our remembrance. While we mourn this loss of life, we also honor their sacrifice by celebrating today. We celebrate that we have worked together as a community of both military and civilian members for a better place. We are a caring community, as reflected on our city's seal. Caring is the spirit that calls this memorial to be built. The spirit of caring calls the creation of the Caring Community Committee and exists today to serve those who deploy and their loved ones that are left behind. So moved by the loss of the 31 years ago today, that immediately this community sought ways to remember and to mark that tear in the fabric of our community. 31 years ago tomorrow, a class at Northwoods Park Junior High School began a project to plant a tree for each of those fallen members of the service that sacrificed in Beirut. A few years later, the community gathered at this location to unveil this memorial. In the parking lot were satellite trucks and news vehicles. Reporters came from all over to see how this community suffered in 1983 and how we as a community remembered them, how we remembered them. This memorial caused the remembrance of that day to have a tangible presence. Today we continue to work on the new Beirut Memorial Grove, where the 273 trees planted in honor of those who were lost will be all in one place. This city has accepted responsibility to maintain the grove in front of Camp Geiger and is proud to be partnered with the State Department of Transportation in this project. No loss is as sad or devastating or heartbreaking as that suffered by a family member whose lost father, husband, son, or cherished relative was in this peacekeeping mission. That pain is enduring, agonizing, and emotional. 31 years may soften, dampen, or diffuse some of the pain, but we know that the loss is still real, and that frequently the source of thoughts of what might have been, if not for the events of October 23rd, 1983. This community felt that loss in an intense, poignant pain and took action. That the nation fell behind the effort to plant the trees, then to build a memorial, and then to fund this magnificent statue is a testament to the sorrow we all felt and the gratitude that this nation has for our armed forces. That we stand here on this anniversary, as we have before, is both healing for the community and as it is our duty to do so. That this memorial has caused others to be built here as you see all around you is testament that this community has advanced the spirit of caring, remembering, and sharing memories like these. Consider the vast and cathartic Vietnam Memorial now complete. Consider the 9/11 Memorial that serves as a focus for our annual observance on that day. And soon groundbreaking will occur for the Montfort Point Marine Memorial. Then observances can be held there. Soon the first phase of the Museum of the Marines will be announced, where even more observances and ceremonies by this community will be held. The designers have identified other sites where, unfortunately, the future may require other memorials. It is so fitting that this first memorial was crafted in a corner of this magnificent parcel so that there would be room for other community-based memorials. The duty to remember is taken very seriously by our community. Consider the Freedom Fountain, many of you saw coming into town, is dedicated to all of those who have passed through this community in service to our nation. While some serving their country are only in our community for a very short period of time, others become our definition of natives, no matter how long they stay. All are integrated into the fabric that makes this community the great place to live that it is. And it contributes to our dedication to not forget what each of these memorials represent. On behalf of the City Council and the city, I want to invoke the memory of Doris Downs, whose leadership calls this memorial, and give thanks to Bob Cornell and the host of others who were the early adopters to this plan. On behalf of the City of Jacksonville and the City Council, I want to thank those still involved and who sit today as the Beirut Memorial Advisory Board members, holding a mantle to never forget. Abe Rosen, Mike Elsey, Woody Myers, Ron Bauer, Wayne Morris, Jackie Honeycutt, Fernando Schiffelbein, along with Dan Joy, now have the duty of the thoughtful preservation of this observance and the protection of this memorial. They and the mayor of the city of Jacksonville are the holders of a powerful pledge to never forget the service and the sacrifice of the people whose names are etched upon the wall. Jacksonville will never forget to remember. Jacksonville will never forget the debt that we owe these people that sacrificed their all, their sacrifice to their ability to come back to their families and enjoy the rest of their lives. Today, while we mourn the loss of our military neighbors in 1983, we give them great tribute by celebrating the durable bond that has been created here. It has withstood years of testing, but each of us who assume the responsibility of elected officials in this community, and each honored leader of these area bases, must equally share the duty of caretaker for the bond that we've created, and to diligently work to continue and strengthen this bond during our transitory tenure and leadership. I believe fully, as having been the mayor for the last 7 years, that the relationship between our local military and our civilian leadership has grown and has made a lot of great things happen for this community. And I know that I have the pledges of many of the other leaders here that we will continue to strive and continue to make sure that we never forget while we're here today, we never forget the sacrifice that our Marines and sailors made in Beirut, Lebanon on October 23rd, 1983. But we'll also never forget what rose out of that sacrifice. I know it's tough for a lot of the family members. You know, it was very, very tough. I can't even begin to know what you felt like through all this time, especially back in 1983. But my heart goes out to you. You should be very proud. You should be very proud to have survived such wonderful people, such fine Americans, such great patriots, and for what they've done to this community. You know, I feel that, you know, their sacrifice not only was for the country, but it brought this community together, and it continues to do so to this very day. And again, my pledge is that as long as I have anything to do with it, we'll never forget. We will never forget that remembrance. We'll never forget that debt that we owe them. And I want to thank all of you for coming out this morning, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Phillips. Thank you for your commitment to these families and for the city's continued commitment to this effort. The Freedom Found, the new Beirut Memorial Grove, and the future of things to come at this site continues a permanent commitment to recognize how unique this community is. Our bases have had exceptional leadership over the years. Our current commander is on temporary duty providing leadership in a troubled area. The command is now being handled by an equally capable officer. Ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Commander, Marine Corps Installations East, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune, Colonel Yuri R. Escalante.
Good morning. Mayor Phillips and local elected officials, Lieutenant General McKissick, Major General Simcock, Major General and Mrs. Dickerson, Mrs. Boudreau, Brigadier General Vercauteren, Miss Kemera, and those families of the fallen from Beirut, Marines, sailors, soldiers, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and members of the Jacksonville-Onslow County community. On behalf of Brigadier General Castelvi, who remains forward deployed, I want to personally welcome you to this time-honored memorial ceremony. As we return from Afghanistan and renew the fight in Iraq, we take time today to look back at the moment 31 years ago that, for all intents and purposes, marked the beginning of the attacks against the United States by extremists jealous of our freedoms, our liberty, and our way of life. And we pay tribute to the 273 service members and peacekeepers whose names are etched on this wall behind you, who gave the ultimate sacrifice in defending those freedoms. Alongside the Vietnam Memorial and the 9/11 World Trade Center beam, the Beirut Memorial has formed the cornerstone for citizens and veterans alike to collectively reflect, to grieve, to pay tribute, and to say thanks for the courageous service members who went into harm's way at the behest of this great nation, and in doing so, exacted a debt that we can't possibly repay. Since the Beirut Memorial's dedication 28 years ago, this place has truly epitomized sacrifice and service, and it will continue to grow in that same spirit with the Montford Point Marine Memorial and a museum to honor our Carolina Marines. For the families of those lost in Beirut, 31 years will not lessen the loss of that fateful day. However, you should take comfort in the knowledge that out of the tragedy emerged a relationship between the base and the community more steadfast and united than ever before. Since then, Camp Lejeune, Marine Corps Air Station New River, and the city of Jacksonville continue to close ranks in support of those who have gone into harm's way and taken care of the loved ones who've remained behind. Additionally, they faithfully maintain the solemn responsibility and privilege of continuing to carry the torch of remembrance, so those who perished in this tragic event will never be forgotten. Today, we do so again with great pride and honor. While October 23rd, 1983 is a date remembered by many across the country, nowhere else is it more truly felt than right here in Jacksonville and Camp Lejeune. We are especially mindful of the sacrifice, its special place in our hearts, and the place that it serves in our cherished history of the Corps. President Ronald Reagan appropriately recognized the bravery and strategic importance in a keynote speech that he made in April of 1984, where he said, "We as a country believed that the goals we sought in that place were worthy of our best, and we gave our best. While we were there, those young men of ours prevented widespread killing in Beirut, and they added luster, not tarnish, to our motto of Semper Fidelis." We now gather here as a unified community to mark those events, to acknowledge that inseparable connection, foster that relationship, and above all else, remember those who have given their lives in defense of this great nation. We also celebrate how, in the midst of tragedy and sorrow, an everlasting bond between Corps and community was formed. welcome, thank you, and Semper Fidelis.
Thank you, Colonel Escalante. Each year, this observance has performed the duties of remembering. Each year, the observance has recognized the families of those whose names are on the wall. It is with great pride that this year we recognize someone who has a brother whose name is on the wall. That name on the wall is Sergeant Millner Camara. Elisa Camara, his sister, and she gave substance to his memory in her book, American Brother. We were introduced to this Florida teacher by Beirut Veterans of America liaison Dan Joy, and today she speaks as a family member, an author, and a woman who has also pledged to never forget the sacrifices made by her brother. Elisa?
Thank you. I think I'll be okay. I'm scared I'll fall off of it. Good morning. Thank you to the City of Jacksonville for hosting this sacred memorial event every year. Thank you very much for the privilege of standing before you today on the 31st anniversary of the Beirut bombing and the liberation of Grenada. And thank you for allowing me to stand before those of you that have so bravely served our country and those of you that are currently serving our country. Most especially, thank you to those military families who have sacrificed at the expense of a loved one. I'm humbled to be here. Please know that fate has brought us together. Our hearts are forever intertwined in the shared love we feel for someone special on this memorial. My someone special is my only brother, U.S. Marine Sergeant Millner Camara. My name is Elisa Maria Camara. I was 17 years old, a freshman at Queens College in Charlotte, North Carolina, when my college roommate came into our room and told me she kept seeing breaking news on TV about a bombing in Beirut at the Marine headquarters. She, along with everyone in that dorm, knew my brother was deployed there because I talked about him a lot. He was my hero at an early age. He was my big brother, my only brother, my protector, my ride to school in the mornings, my softball coach, my personal fishing instructor, my dating expert, and shoulder to cry on when I was heartbroken. It was obvious to many I adored him. I could not imagine he could be hurt or nonetheless killed. He would send me letters often from Beirut. Not one of them ever led me to believe that he was in danger. Looking back, he was making sure I would not worry about him. Well, it was only within a few hours after being glued to the TV with all of my friends by my side that I was notified from home that Millner was one of the first to be identified. Shortly after, 2 Marines came slowly walking to the sidewalk, down the sidewalk to my dorm. I knew they were there for me. I could not even look them in the eyes. I was running to my car screaming, "I already know." I could not get back home to West Virginia quickly enough. My family put an APB out on me. I